A lot of people are uncomfortable disagreeing at work, not because they have nothing to say, but because they're worried about what disagreement might turn into. If you do it badly, you can sound reactive, awkward, or more interested in being right than being useful. So people often go one of two ways. They either avoid disagreement completely, or they come into hard and make the whole thing more tense than needed to be. Neither works very well. What you want is steadiness, because in professional life, disagreement is normal, so you have to be steady with it. The real question is not whether you disagree, it's whether you know how to do it well. And doing it well matters because respectful disagreement is one of the clearest signs of maturity at work. It shows you can handle tension without losing judgment, you can stay steady, you can handle tension without turning it into drama. And that is a valuable skill. The first thing to understand is this: disagreement goes wrong fastest when your goal is to win. You want to win. If your energy becomes, I need to prove this is wrong, or I need to show that I'm right, people feel it. And once that happens, the conversation often goes downhill quite quickly. Because now it is not really about the work, it is about ego. A much stronger starting point would be, for example, I want to help us think about this properly. That changes your tone immediately. You're no longer fighting the person. You're trying to think through the issue properly. And that is a better footing. The second thing is to disagree with the point, not with the person. And this sounds obvious, but people miss it all the time. There's a big difference between I see that differently and that doesn't make sense. A big difference between I think there may be a risk here and I don't think you've thought this through. One keeps the conversation professional, the other makes it personal. And once it becomes personal, people start digging their heels in. Because the moment someone feels attacked, they are much less likely to think openly. They will start defending themselves instead. So if you want to disagree well, you need to leave the other person room to think and not back them into a corner. So for example, phrases that matter. Some useful ones. One concern I have is, could we look at this from another angle? I'm not sure that will have the effect we want. I can see the logic, but I think there may be another issue here. Those phrases help because they keep the discussion open, while still making your view clear. And that is the balance. Not vague, not aggressive, clear and workable. So let me know. Comment below with the kind of disagreement you find hardest at work. Is it with a manager or a colleague or in a group setting? Because most people are not afraid of disagreement in theory. They're just afraid of the social consequences around it. And that is fair. A lot of people avoid disagreement because they think respect depends on being agreeable. And it doesn't. People often respect thoughtful disagreement more than silent agreement. What loses respect is usually not disagreement itself. It is the poor judgment inside disagreement. Talking over people, becoming sharp, being emotionally loaded, choosing the wrong moment, turning a work issue into a personal contest. And that is a big no-no. And that is what creates the damage. A better approach is to focus on timing, tone, and purpose. For example, what timing means. Asking, for example, is this the right moment to raise this? Tone would mean, can I say this in a way that keeps the temperature down? And purpose would mean, for example, am I trying to improve the thinking, or I am just discharging my frustration? So ask yourself those questions before starting a disagreement. And there's a third one that matters more than what people realize. Because sometimes people are not really disagreeing to help. They are disagreeing because they are irritated and would like everybody else to participate in that experience. And while it may be emotionally satisfying for a few seconds, it is rarely a great professional strategy. So good disagreement is usually calmer than what people expect. It doesn't need theatre. Often it's very simple. For example, I'm not convinced that's the best route. I think there's a risk we're underestimating. I'd take a different view on that. And that is enough. And one more thing that matters here. You need to be able to disagree without becoming rattled by disagreement coming back to you. Because once you express a view, someone might challenge it, or another person. And that is good too. And that is part of the deal. And if you immediately become defensive, wounded, flustered, the conversation gets harder. And it's harder to hold it well. So professional disagreement requires a bit of steadiness on both sides. As I said at the beginning, steady. You need to be able to say, fair point, I see why you think that, let me explain what I'm concerned about. All those example phrases I've been saying. And that is how respect is kept. Not by avoiding tension altogether, but by handling it with proportion. So if you want to disagree at work without losing respect, the aim is not to become softer or harsher. It is to become steadier inside disagreement. Disagree with the issue, not the person. Keep your tone steady. Choose the right moment. Be clear about your concern and stay open enough that the conversation can still move. That is what mature disagreement looks like. And people tend to respect it more, not less. If you want to become more respected and more effective at work and work with me inside the mentorship, you will find the link below.